So then it's Derby Day on Saturday as Cardiff City travel down to Ashton Gate. And today I'm joined by Bristol City fan Jack as we're going to look ahead and preview Saturday's game. So firstly, Jack, thank you for joining me. And we're obviously coming off the back of two losses now in a row. Obviously, Derby last Saturday and Brentford on Wednesday night. So let's talk about Brentford first. What was your overall look and thoughts on Wednesday's game?
Yeah, no worries for joining you. It's a pleasure to be on. But I think Wednesday's game, I think we just touched on it. It was a lot better, but it's one of those where it's been better for a good 20 minutes, but then the rest of the game was back to the wall against what we expect. And I think the damning statistic is the 6 away defeats in a row. And I think in recent years, we've almost been kept afloat by our away form. So that's the worrying thing, especially under Lee Johnson. We were very good at going to even places like Brentford and grinding out a draw, whether we deserved it or not. At times, definitely not. But I think the away form almost disintegrating is the worrying thing for me, because that's what we've been almost so dependent on the last few years. I think the performance was better, yes. I think the opening 20 minutes would look really good. I think Edwards was a breath of fresh air. Masengo is back to how he was 18 months ago when he first joined. But I think from then on, I think the lack of a left back in particular really showed. And I think in the end, you can't really argue with Brentford win because they did create the more chances. It's going to be well. We didn't really create many clear-cut chances. I remember Viner shot from the edge of the area, but other than the goal, we didn't create too much. It's not like a case of if we took that chance, we could have got a draw. There wasn't really any chances there. So just another disappointing result, really. The performance was improved ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing you said there was what we said off air as well. And we both really agreed that the way we played in the first 20 minutes, half an hour of Wednesday's game was direct attacking football, and it showed because we got a goal, and we were 1-0 up for the majority of that first half. And then when we started to soak up pressure and, as you said, put our backs behind the wall and just let Brentford come at us, and a team like Brentford, and there's a lot of other teams in the Championship, you've got like your Forests, your Swanseas, even your Cardiffs. If you let them put pressure on you, you're going to concede. And with the defence that we've got at the moment, no left back and people just coming in and out of that back line, is obviously not ideal. But do you think the way forward for Bristol City and Dean Holden, obviously for the rest of the season and hopefully next season as well, is to turn to that direct attacking football? Because over the last few weeks, we've obviously seen a lot of different formations from Dean Holden. We went from the 5-3-2 to the 4-4-2 and then to 4-3-3 yesterday. And when we were playing that, we actually played quite well. So do you think the way forward is that direct attacking football that we saw under Lee Johnson in the start of the Dean Holden era?
I think so, certainly, because if you look at it, I think Dean Holden wants to play that way, but the injuries almost limited him. I think with the 3-5-2, which we played at the start of the season, it's all well and good, but ultimately, if you only have 2 fit wing backs and now 1 fit wing back, arguably, you can't play that 2-3 times a week, because inevitably Jack Hunt's going to get fatigued, Tommy Rowe's going to get fatigued, and it is such an intense position to be playing in as those wing backs. So I think now with players like Patterson coming back, Williams doesn't look too far away. Not Creel's gone on Liam Walsh, which is a shame. So I was really looking forward to seeing him this year. But with injuries coming back, players coming back to full fitness, I think we will be looking at a more attacking team, because for the first part of the game yesterday, I think the 4-3-3, it just seemed more balanced with Edwards and Semenyo in the wings, because when it was Wells on the wings, at times Jage on the wings, which was bizarre, it didn't really look balanced enough. I didn't feel so. I think having Edwards, even Palmer could play on that left-hand side, I feel. Players to provide width, because at times early in the season when we were playing a 4-3-3, the wingers would tend to be in the centre of the pitch, not really stretching the play. And when you have fullbacks that don't really press forward, Mariappa at times especially, you need the wingers to provide the width. And I think now that we have that personnel and players coming back, I feel it's easier to play that formation. So I think going forward now, the defensive football, I think, is just been in place to keep us in touch with the top 6. Until we do get some players coming back. But now that they are beginning to come back, I don't see why. We've got a tough run of games coming up, which will be difficult to implement it. But next few games, I think, Cardiff especially, I think you've got to attack them.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said earlier on, it's the away form that over the last few years, have been keeping us afloat and in and around that top 6. And we've gone off at home a little bit over the last few years, and now dropping off a bit away from home. I think we do need to get better in both sides, but I think we do need to start making Ashton Gate a bit of a fortress, which we haven't really done in the last few years. So just sticking on this attacking football subject, with the left back situation and the injuries we've got at the back and stuff. Do you think we should keep that 4-3-3, or maybe go for the three at the back and then the outnumber teams in midfield with the five or the three up top?
I feel it's difficult without a wing back to think. With a four at the back, you can almost get away with Mariappa, but as a left wing back, I'd be more tempted to throw someone like, if O'Dowd was fit, I think he'd be perfect in that position. It's like, does Holden maybe see Edwards playing as the left wing back? Patterson maybe? I don't really see it. So I think for now, I think we've got really no choice but to stick with this four at the back, because it just makes the situation more bizarre to me, and just strange how we didn't sign a left wing back. I know Newcastle released one today, a left back. I'm not sure, can't remember his name, but I saw some reports on Twitter, some people suggesting that we could maybe go in for him. And, Pape Suarez, another name, that's just a classic look on transfer market, who's a free agent. But ultimately, we find ourselves in this position a lot, where Williams last year, Mariappa earlier this year, where we have failed to add in the windows. We're now looking at free agents because out of desperation, really. And it's just that stage, because I think Dean Holden, he made it very clear that he wanted to play a 3-5-2. And even last night's pre-match interview on Sky, he said to the interviewer that they will probably be playing that, and that's how they were playing at the start of the season. And because of injuries, they can't play it now. And I think just because of the wing backs, you can't ask any two of them to play 2-3 games a week, because it's just not possible in this league. In the Championship, it's so hectic, it's so demanding physically, that you can't ask a Jack Hunt or Tommy Rowe. I think you need some rotation in there, because even in Cottrell's teams, he rotated the wing backs a fair bit just to keep them fresh. I just think now it's not possible to do that. So I think the 4-3-3 is what we'll be seeing for a long time. And I'm all for it, to be honest, because I think it looked good. I think it gets the best out of Masengo in particular midfield. I think having the extra security of a few players in there. And then as long as we can add width, I think it's the best option going forward.
Do you think that has been one of our problems in recent years? Because just put our minds back to the Cottrell era, we had Ayling on the right, Joe Bryan on the left, and they were pretty young players, and we had a lot of young players back then. Over the last few years, Mark Ashton with Johnson and now Holden as well, we haven't really been investing in a lot of young players. The only really one I can think of is Masengo and Viner, but apart from that, we've been getting older players like your Williams. And so do you think in the summer and maybe next January as well, that's really where we need to invest our money in? Ashton does actually need to invest his money in younger players that we can bring in and hopefully get into that squad.
I think it's worrying. I saw Exiled Robin on Twitter did a really good thread about it. I think it's worrying how we've diverted from that strategy, because that was when we looked at our best, this youthful team, exuberant, full of energy, no fear, playing high octane football. But for now, have we really seen that? Part of me now thinks how much of that recruitment was Lee Johnson, because Josh Brown was probably the prime example, and that was very much a Lee Johnson signing, because he played him at Barnsley, had him at Barnsley, yeah. And then Alan Webster, I saw the quotes where Lee Johnson said, "I would only sell Finn if you brought me Alan Webster." So to me, that kind of points fingers at Mark Ashton. It says how much of the good recruitment has been down to Mark Ashton, because even if you look at the player sales, the big money ones, Joe Bryan, Bobby Reid, they aren't Mark Ashton players. They're players from the academy. They're not players Mark Ashton has brought in and developed at the club.
Yeah, exactly.
So to me, I think we need to go back to that strategy. I think this year, it's understandable, because I can see the logic in progressing these academy players like Semenyo, Backinson, Viner, O'Leary even, because to raise their value. But I think to keep clubs self-sustainable, which the Lansdowns are constantly referring to, it makes sense to bring in younger players rather than likes of Chris Martin. Although Mariappa was forced, there's been Lansbury as well, as a bit of a puzzling one when you've got Masengo, Viner, Backinson in that midfield. But I can see the logic for this season in particular, where the revenue is obviously minimal. I can see the logic in adding value to those academy players, because now you look at the conveyor belt, you think Semenyo is probably going to be the next one on there. He's going to command a big fee, and how much is he worth 6 months ago compared to now? I'd see the sense in bringing in Holden to progress these players and add to their values, because even bringing in a young player will still cost a bit of money. Whereas if they're there, develop them for a year, maybe bring in some experienced pros to settle them in, see us over the line so it doesn't end in disaster. And then hopefully next year we've got some money stored and we go for it, going back to that policy, because Dan has made it very clear that that's the way they want the club to be. And it's just a bit odd that we've seemingly diverted from it.
Yeah, and because we've also obviously sold some of the youngsters as well that's come through the academy. We've obviously got Joe Morrell, who was sold in the summer, and that was when I could understand it, because it felt to me that after we brought in so many players in the summer, we had what looked like a very, very big squad, but obviously it just takes the Saturday, Tuesday games to make us down to a very minimalistic squad now. That means we're having to bring in the likes of Edwards and players like into the starting 11. But let's move on to Saturday then. We've obviously got Cardiff, the seven-side derby. Both teams coming in on not very good form. Cardiff on a few draws, haven't won yet in 2021. Bristol City off the back of 2 losses as well. So for you, Jack, who would you like to see start on Saturday? Because we've obviously saying we want to start playing that attacking direct football, which we haven't really been doing at Ashton Gate over the last few years. So who would you like to be in that starting 11 on Saturday afternoon?
I think Masengo is the one for me. I got a lot of stick, I think, on our podcast because I was saying Masengo, give him games, he could be different. And I think I really saw that last night. I really like Masengo. To me, it's bizarre how he hasn't really got the minutes that I think he warrants, because on his days, he's a terrific footballer. And I hope those rumours about being sent on loan to Birmingham aren't true, because I value him so much. He's got so much potential. And I think in a game against Cardiff, it's going to be gritty. It's going to be tight. I don't think there'll be many goals in it. I think someone like Masengo could produce me. So I think he has looked more offensive. He's had more freedom recently. I think when he came on against, I think it was Preston, where he was doing roulettes. He was doing whatever it is where you flick the ball over the defender and ran onto it. He was doing that. And he was shooting. And I think even last night he cut in a few step-overs and had a shot on target. That's not the Masengo we saw even late under Lee Johnson in the start of this season. So I think give him the minutes, because I think he's warranting it. I think Awura Edwards as well, really exciting last night. A few things didn't come off, yes, but that's tough against players like Rico Henry and Dalsgaard. So that was, I think if you give him a run against Cardiff, ultimately we've got nothing really to lose. I think the playoffs, whilst only 3 points off them, I think there seems an acceptance on the fan base that we won't get it this year due to injuries, and that's a very negative thing to say, but I just can't see it happening personally. So I think it would be beneficial to play players like Masengo and Edwards just to give them more championship minutes. I think Patterson, if he's fit, maybe, but then again, I don't think he deserves to come in over Palmer yet, just based off how good Palmer's been in the last few games as well. So I think Masengo and Edwards would be the ones for me. I think I'd love to see someone start over Mariappa, but we just don't have the personnel for it. So I think you have to stick with him. But I think a similar team that started so well against Brentford on Wednesday night for me.
So then, finally, let's talk about our score predictions for Saturday, and also with the FA Cup on midweek on Wednesday. You were saying there that you don't really think that playoffs is looking very likely at the moment, and we're obviously nowhere near relegation at the moment. So do you think we could maybe go for the Cup this year? I'll obviously be doing a preview for that game on Wednesday, but just from you, do you think we should go for the Cup this year and maybe play the likes of Edwards and Masengo, give them some game time, ready to go for the Premier League next year?
I'll be honest, I'd absolutely love to give the Cup a go. I heard Dean Holden say that we can't win the FA Cup, and I was like, what's that all about? That's not the spirit of it. But I think, yes, that's, if we beat Sheffield United, who, yes, they've picked up lately, but I think their focus will still be in the Premier League. That's the quarterfinals, and that can lift the fan base. Just getting a big draw, I don't know who's left in it, a Man United, a Man City, a Chelsea, someone like that can really lift the fan base and give everyone something to look forward to ultimately, because it is a miserable time. I think the FA Cup still has its magic. It'll still, even if you are watching from home, it will still excite you just to see Bristol City on BBC One against a Man City or, a Chelsea. That is what football is all about to me. I think Dean Holden seems the type of person to be aware of how much the FA Cup means, and I think it would be like in 17-18, it brought so much good to the club. I think it would be, especially considering it looks like we're going to be mid-table this year, despite how close we are to the top 6. I don't think the performances have been good enough to warrant us being anywhere near them, to be honest. But I think if we do manage to get to the last 8 of the FA Cup, then that's suddenly changes the mood completely. I think that will benefit the league also, if we do manage to go in a bit of a cup run and even beat another big team. That could reignite our season again. So I would go for it. I think it is, to me, I'm more excited about the FA Cup games these days, just because the league hasn't been scintillating the football. But I think the FA Cup is a breath of fresh air, and I really would want to see City go for it this year.
So then finally, I agree with what you said, though. I think we definitely should go for the cup. I think we probably do have quite a good chance this year. We've obviously got past Mill pretty convincingly at the Den a few weeks ago, and then Sheffield United, who obviously is a winnable game. But then finally, just to end off this match day preview, do you think we'll be able to get the result on Saturday in the Seven-Side Derby?
I think so. It's always a tight, gritty game, but given how promising we were on Wednesday, I know Mick McCarthy was there in the stand, Sky Sports panned him. I'm thinking, is that an essential journey or it's on Sky Sports? That's another debate, but I think so. I haven't seen much. I thought Cardiff would be good this year. I think Harry Wilson was a brilliant signing. I think Ojo as well. They signed Ojo, I think they did. But anyway, I think they've really underperformed, haven't they? Mick McCarthy, I don't know what to think of that appointment. So it will be a tough, gritty game, as it always is in the derby. None of them have been high scoring lately. It's all been quite dire, similar games. But I think we can do it. I think it'll be one goal in it either way. But I think we can nick it just because I haven't really seen enough from Cardiff. I think Kiefer Moore coming back is a big plus for Cardiff. But ultimately, I think City could nick it, maybe 1-0 or 2-1. I think it'll be City by 1 goal.
Yeah, I definitely think with both teams coming into the game on not very good form, on Bristol City, it being at Ashton Gate. And as I said to you off air, if we can play like we did for the first half an hour, for maybe 80 to 90 minutes on Saturday, I reckon we could definitely get the win. I think a win would definitely boost us for the rest of the season. And even if promotion isn't a likely target now, even getting a win could really push us on to Wednesday night when we've got Sheffield United away. But yeah, thanks for joining me today. Hopefully the Reds can get the win in the Seven-Side Derby. Hope you enjoyed coming on to the Jack.
I did. Thank you. Yeah, pleasure. It's always good to do things like this in the current climate. Good to take your mind off what's going on. So yeah, always happy to come on.
Legend. So thank you guys all for watching. Hopefully the Reds can get the win on Saturday. I'll see you guys all on the next one. Come on, you Reds.